you. Thank God for all of you. Well, thank you for tuning in to another show of Gospel Talk, where we believe in talking about the gospel, the Word of God. God is doing great things all around, and we are still blessed in spite of what we're going through right now. We're going through the second or third, I'm not sure, maybe even the fourth wave of this pandemic, and it is just going rampant throughout our city, our town. Many of my friends and loved ones have gotten it not for the first time, but some have even gotten it for the third time or even more. But we know that God is still in the blessing business. And one of the things that we want to pray for is our neighborhoods, our governments. We see what's going on in our neighborhoods every day and in our government, but we need to speak up. Speak up about things that are bothering you. When I'm going through our neighborhoods, in certain neighborhoods, how the neighborhoods are not being taken care of, it seems like sometimes that it's being neglected. But we have to take ownership of what we do where we live, and sometimes people just don't want to do that. And that's what we want to start doing, in your life, is taking ownership. And one of the topics today is going to be about stewardship. And ask yourself, are you a good steward, or can you be a good steward? And when you are a good steward, you are always aware of your surroundings, how it looks, how it's going to be, and because that's a reflection on the people that live there. And what we see now all the time in our news, we have so many things going on, so many ups and so many downs, but we have to learn how to put it in God's hands. And when we put it in God's hands, God will work it out. And God works a wonder in our life. I'm grateful today that God is still in the blessing business and that God is still keeping us. As we follow the world news upon the pricing in gasoline, as we see that it's going down, we've seen that one of the things when gas prices go down, that lets us know that things are really not getting back on track. It lets us know that things are still out of whack. And so we got to be mindful of that. Gas in the last few weeks have started to take a nosedive, but we have problems. The first time me and some friends was talking about it, for the first time that I could ever remember, that having a mass shortage of baby formula. What are we living in? A shortage of food in certain areas. We need to steadfast and begin to pray. We need to be more self-sufficient. We always say we're going to have less dependent upon foreign oil, less dependent on different countries. But we find ourselves, even though we're less dependent, but since we work or live in a global market, what affects one affects something else. So we haven't separated ourselves from that. We're still locked into that. There's some things that we need to work on and that we're going to work on. And we as a people, we need to come together. One of the things I was happy about this weekend, I was going down West 3rd and at William Street. There's a new restaurant, or more or less a food court with a bar. That is a long time coming. Glad to see that come in. I was there, spent some time there. The food is great. I want to thank all the people that helped put that together to bring life back into an area that is so well deserved. That area has a rich history, very rich history. I remember growing up, and I know a lot of people won't remember these things, and I'm telling my age, but there was an old store back in the day called Rubenstein, and Rubenstein's was down there, and it was a vibrant area. There was a theater down there. There was something to do. So we're looking for great things. Great things. We used to have live concerts where James Brown even came down there, and all the greats of that time. And so when I saw that and how well it was put together, I'm looking forward, and we're all looking forward, that it's going to attract new businesses And in a few years, I'm looking for another, more or less like an Oregon district area, in that area to be new construction is going on, and that's a great thing. That's a great thing. COVID is not keeping us down; it's making us stronger. So whatever you're going through, just hang in there for a little while. Trouble don't last always. Storms pass; they don't last, and that's what we got to understand. We may be in a storm right now, but it's not going to last. It's not going to last at all. God is in the blessing business. And as I was saying, I'm happy to see what's going on in our neighborhood on West 3rd, between 3rd and I think that's Broadway. And they're just doing some great things down there. So we're going to be back in a few minutes. My special guest today is none other than Cortez Jackson. And some things are going on and some changes are going to be made, but we are looking forward to that play called The Pandemic. Man, I'm excited. Hey, I've already got my tickets, and hold on to them, because we ain't going nowhere. We are getting ready to have a great time. So God bless you. We'll be right back. God bless you. Today we have with us none other than my producer and man that have taken and patient with me. And you know what? I need somebody to have a lot of patience with me, because sometimes I get a little over anxious and make some mistakes. But he keeps me in line, and I'm grateful to him. And I'm going to give a shout out to my son, Jay Jones and Platinum Caterers, because if it hadn't have been for my son, Jay Jones, and him, this was a few years ago. My son, he was working with my son, and for Father's Day, he sent him to my church for Father's Day to record on Father's Day our service, and it was the beginning of a great relationship. And since then, we were able to produce this show along with others. And before we get started, I want you to special prayer for Jontis Ruffin. He would have been here today, but he's down sick. I think several things. He's down with COVID, and he also, I think, sprained his ankle. So prayer for him, and Rough Boy Records. God bless you. Hey, Cortez.
Hey, Pastor.
How's it going?
I'm
doing great.
It's a blessing to be here with you.
Yes, it is.
I know I was going to end up back on your show again.
Hey.
But you know what? God always got a ram in the bush for us.
Hey.
Due to the fact that, things happen. And, and you were talking about this COVID thing, man. Some of my cast members done contracted it. Mm-hmm. And I'm really debating about, and I hope people don't get disappointed, but sometimes you have to do things to be careful of what's going on. We might have to put this play back for a month. Mm-hmm. And I'd rather be safe than sorry.
And you know what? I think you're absolutely right. We need to put some thought to it. We've had so many more outbreaks, and It looks like this time is more outbreaks this time than it was before.
Yeah.
I know we've had some large events around the city, around the state, mm-hmm. that people have went to, and because they've went through some things, and we're back. I think everything is back in full swing. Mm-hmm. So I think that is adding new issues. So we have to watch out for one another.
Yes.
This week, we're going to take a few weeks, and we're going to be out in the parking lot.
Okay.
We want to make sure our service will be out in the parking lot if the weather permits.
Yes.
But we want to make sure that we go back and look at our sanctuary,
mm-hmm.
Do some things to that, to make sure that because I think what we forget, that virus can linger
Yes.
for a while.
Yes.
And even though everyone's gone, it can stay on surfaces.
Mm-hmm.
I think people forget that.
Yeah.
We have to stay safe.
That's right.
My Christian friends, we have to stay safe. And if Cortez Jackson do decide to move the pandemic out, it's not something that he wants to do, but it's something that might have to be done.
Yes.
We haven't said it yet, but we have several members, a few of our members also with COVID.
Yes.
And they're doing well, but continue prayers.
Yeah.
But I need to hear from you.
Yeah, well, you know, the thing about it is, I just wish that people just would be more honest about this thing. I looked at a survey, and the survey said 71% of American people are not vaccinated. 71%. And then they want to get attitudes when the government say you can't do this and you can't do that. And the thing about it is, it could be so simple. I mean, we could have this thing under control if people would just do the right thing. And some of it, Pastor, is, you know, wearing your mask when they say wear your mask. I mean, I understand some people have a respiratory problem. I got a respiratory problem. If I'm in a facility similar to like this, because we both vaccinated and boosted, so I don't expect to catch anything from you, and you don't expect to catch anything from me. But if we're in a surroundings of people that we actually don't know, we don't know how honest these people are being.
Right, and you know what? You know what I find funny is there's people that will promote wearing a mask, but won't get vaccinated.
Yeah.
How can you promote wearing a mask and not get vaccinated and tell us about how careful we need to be? I've ran into many a person says, well, you know, I'm not going to get the mask. I'm not going to get the shot because they put something in the shot. We went over this scenario time and time and time again.
Yes.
How can you say you're not going to get the shot, but you're going to wear the mask? All this works together.
Yes.
It may not look good, it may not feel good, but it's for your good.
Yes, sir.
All things work together for them that love the Lord.
Amen.
And we have to start working together. We have so many people that are sick. I understand one of your cast members have gotten it for the second time.
The second time.
And
Yeah.
second time in 2 weeks.
Yeah. And that just goes to show you that the president isn't exempt, because he caught it, he got cleared of it, and then he caught it again.
Right.
So the thing about this, Pastor, is what I don't quite understand is people are saying they don't know what they're putting in the shot. Now let me ask you a question. When your kids went to school, when they first went to school, when they were young, and they told you your kids had to be vaccinated, did you ask the school what's in the vial? They told you that it was going to protect you from smallpox and all these other diseases. And it's the same thing that they're saying now.
Right.
Okay? But I mean, there's so many people that's fighting against this. And it does have a tendency to kind of skip. Okay, I'll give you an example. My manager, she caught it, right?
Okay.
Her husband, who sleeps in the same bed, live in the same house, didn't catch it.
Wow.
And so she had to quarantine herself in another room, but he didn't catch it. And thank God for those test kits that we have, that he was able to test himself and find out that he didn't have it. And a bishop friend of one of the bishops that's in my show, I had told him, he's 80-something years old, and I told him a few years ago, I said, Bishop, you go around all these different people.
Yes.
You don't want to wear a mask, and you don't want to get vaccinated. Oh, I ain't getting vaccinated because I got Jesus. But Jesus, hey, look, back in the Egyptian days, when God told Moses to put the blood over the doorpost so the death angel could pass.
I like that.
Okay? Remember that?
Yes, I remember.
This is the same thing. See, they didn't have medication back then. They didn't have anyone to go through the processes of finding a serum to do this. God told them. God told them put the blood over the post. But they still act like fools.
Well, because what some people just don't believe. And I heard someone says we need to quit trusting the doctors. Okay. We need to quit trusting the police. Okay, I hear you loud and clear, but if somebody breaking in your house, the first person you're gonna call is police. Now, if we don't have any police and the natives are running the city, so they,
We in
you know,
trouble.
don't worry.
We in trouble.
Who are you gonna call?
You can't call Ghostbusters.
Right, you can't call those. Who you gonna call? Who you gonna call?
Oh, man.
I mean, some things we got to remember what the Word of God says. The Word of God says that He's given some special abilities.
Amen. That's right.
Special ability. Maybe, you know, there's good and bad, and there's some that just fall right in the middle, and there's others that fall right down the cracks. But there's good and bad in everything. And then there's some that just get caught up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, you know, I'll never want to say that we don't need
Right.
law enforcement.
Right.
Because we do.
We do.
We do. When I see people just flying through red lights, when I see
Oh,
people
Lord.
just having a shootout for no reason, you know, when I see people walking up robbing people,
Yeah.
you know, we live in a world that basically that there's so much going on.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're not careful, and I know some people say we don't need the police, what are we going to do? What are we going to do?
Play the Wild Wild West.
Right. I mean, we already live in a state to where, you know, you can stand your ground.
Yep.
So the slightest little argument, you know, could result in someone getting fatally injured. We living in this world,
Yeah.
you know, to where the law has eased up.
Yeah.
You know, nothing.
Yeah.
So we need to bring some order back. You know, do our policemen needs to be trained for sensitivity?
Yes.
Yes. You know, I think that basically, in my opinion, law enforcement should at least, if that's the career that you're going to take, I think you need at least 2 to 4 years of education
Yeah.
before you even do your training. You need psychology.
Yep.
You need that.
Yep.
You need to be able to look at a situation and be able to know how to act within a moment's notice.
Yeah.
But if we're just pushing new police out there because we want to meet numbers,
Right.
well, that's why we get some things that come out the way they do.
Yes, sir.
And so we need more training.
Yeah.
We need more discipline, but we need more police officers, and we need real police,
Yeah.
not just flashlight cops and call on police.
That's right. That's right.
And a lot of these police officers we might love, but they ain't nothing but flashlight cops.
Yeah.
They don't need to be doing nothing but giving parking tickets.
Amen.
And that's it. That's it. And walking around daycares, making sure everything's fine.
Right.
But for real life situations, we got to remember. And you know what? I can't forget. You know, we forget about the fallen officers.
Right. That's right.
That's important.
We just lost one.
Right. We just lost several
Yeah.
right here in our community.
Yeah.
You know, why don't we make a bigger ruckus about that? You know, because they're protecting us. They're putting their lives on the line. And I know some people might say, well, Pastor Robinson, you're wrong. Well, we expect them to do that.
Right.
But we expect them to, their job is to serve and protect. You know, and we as a people, we got to understand, respect the law.
Yep. That's right.
You know, I taught my children, respect the law, whether you like it or not. You can fight them better in court than hand to hand.
Yep. And you know, one thing that I found out when you're dealing with police, just like you say, you want to be respected, they want to be respected.
That's right.
One thing that I learned, and I learned this at an early age, when my grandfather taught me, he said, look, if you get stopped by the cops, just say yes sir, no sir. And I found out it works a lot better because one time I think I went to a stop sign. The cop pulled me over. I said, yes sir. He said, you know you went to that stop sign. I said, sir, I wasn't thinking. But giving him that yes sir, no sir, he ended up telling me, well, you know what? Just be careful.
Right.
He could have gave me a ticket. But it was the way that I came off with myself. Now, if I came off, why are you stopping me? What's up?
Right. I mean, you know, and I feel the same. My parents, my mom and dad, taught me the same thing. If you get stopped, when and I was one of those kids that parents worked hard to create a life
Yes.
that maybe they didn't have,
Right.
and maybe some part of their lives they wanted to want better for me.
Yes, sir.
So when I was around 16, you know, I drove my parents' car the majority of the time.
Yeah.
And my father kept a new car. And I never forget, I was out and I get stopped. The car was only a few months old.
Right.
I get stopped, and since my parents' name wasn't the same as mine,
Right.
they immediately put me in cuffs and said I stole the car.
You stole the car. That's right.
And you know, they didn't have the technology they had now,
Right.
and they got a hold of my father. And my father was really truly upset because he lived in a time where racial tension was something.
Yes, sir.
And he knew that on his mother's side, my father was born in 1914. So I think on his mother's side, her brother was hung
Ooh,
for looking at a white woman.
wow.
And that inside of him, it just festered longer, and he worked harder
Right.
so his son could have.
Yes.
And to see me get arrested, false accused, you know, basically thought that I stole the car.
Right.
My father raised a lot, but I think what helped me is that I said, yes, sir.
Yep.
No, sir.
Yep.
I said, it's my father's. And they still said, well, how come your father don't have your last name? You know, or you don't have your father's last name.
Right.
And so, you know, I went to tell them, and it sounded like a lie. I
Right.
said, well, I was adopted.
Right.
And naturally, they said, well, if you was adopted, how come your name ain't that? And I says, I couldn't answer that.
Right. Right.
But we live in a world to where there is racism,
Yeah. It's
and it's still
exists,
prominent.
Yeah.
But we as a people have to learn
Yeah.
that sometimes it's not the way you answer the question, it's how you answer
That's
the question.
Right. Yep. You're right.
Teach our children.
Right.
Teach our children.
Yeah.
You know, I heard Chris Rock say something, and it was so funny. He says, I have a grandson. He's 6'2", 6'3". No, I think he's 6'6". And the first thing everybody asks him, does he play ball?
Right.
And he just looks, no, he doesn't play basketball.
Right.
But he played for a little while, just said it wasn't for him.
Right.
But I heard Chris Rock say one time, and I love this answer that he says. He said, most of our black kids can name just about every ball player, every major ball player, and can give you the stats on him. But ask them, you could ask that same kid to start naming the owners. That same kid cannot name an owner of any team. So Chris Rock said, and Chris, if you ever see this, I give you kudos for this one. He says, what side of the check do you want your name on?
I want my name on the side with the older side.
He said, and he said the guy that's writing the check, he's wealthy.
Right.
Who he's writing the check to is just rich.
Right.
We teach our children that the only way they can make it is this,
Yeah.
is that you got to be throwing the ball.
Right.
How about you writing the check instead
Amen.
for the ball player?
That's right.
You know, I'm proud of those black owners that have crossed and started writing the checks for the team.
That's right.
And when we look at our lives and teach our children, and that helps them to get where they are at. But we got to remember, one thing that we got to do is teach.
Yeah.
Teach our children.
Yeah.
Teach them how to respect one another.
That's right.
Teach them how to respect the law. I was watching a show, then we'll get back. I was watching a show of Judge Brown. If you see this, kudos out to you. Judge Brown, I was watching him, and it was a young black guy on there. And Judge Brown couldn't get him to settle down, or the word shut up.
Right.
And Judge Brown told him, he says, I got the power to throw your butt back in jail.
Yeah.
And he said, send me to jail. I ain't scared.
That's the problem. That's
You
the
know,
problem.
One of the things I'm scared of is, well, I'm not afraid to go to jail, but I don't want to go to jail for what?
Yeah.
I don't want my freedoms given up.
That's right. That's right.
I like going when I want to, coming home when I want to.
That's right.
Doing what I
Eating
want
when
to.
you want to.
Eating what I want, not eating what somebody else wants. And I sure enough, now y'all may not like this. I don't want to share a cell with another man.
Hey, y'all.
Cortez.
Yeah, I want to go somewhere very quick. I want to bring up a couple of subjects. As you know, last week we had 2 major shootings.
Yes.
One was in Cincinnati. 9 people got shot, and and they said it started over an argument.
Always.
And thank God there was no fatalities. But now the mayor of Cincinnati came on television. He says, well, this ain't going to be tolerated, and this and that and this and this. And we had officers down there. He said they had 2 officers in a crowd of people, over 1,000 people. 2 officers that they actually had that was monitoring 1,000 people. And see, that's one of the problems that we have. It's like, it used to be a time, man, you used to can go somewhere and enjoy yourself. Now you got to be careful, because that's one reason why, even though I don't do it anymore, but I was a club hopper. Look, Monday through Sunday, I stayed I get off work, that's where we went. But you know what I found out, Pastor? This world is so much full of jealousy that you got to be careful, even going to your local pub, because of the jealousy of different people. One thing I have never been jealous about, and I ain't gonna lie to you, I knew a lot of women, and I still know a lot of women. I dated a lot of women. But my thing was this. I have never been jealous of another man speaking to my woman because I went to the bathroom.
Well, you know what? That reminds me of 2 things. I remember one time I was in my work truck, and you know how you pull up to the light, and I glanced over in the car next to me. Now I'm in a big E250 truck,
Right.
and I just look over, and it was a sedan, and we were making the turn together, and before the light turned green, the guy rolled down the window, and he started yelling, "What was I looking at?" But I'm giving you the mild version.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "What?"
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" "Man, you staring at my woman." I'm thinking like, you are 2 kind of fool. One, a fool going and a fool coming. What do you think I'm gonna do? Jump out of this van, grab your woman, and take off? Well, I looked at this guy, and I just rolled my window back up, and I kept going.
Right.
He gets behind me, and he started following me.
Wow.
And I'm like, what in the world is wrong with this guy? And he tries to cut me off. So the first thing that I wanted to do was get to a safe area,
Right.
to where there was a crowd of people,
Right.
And then if I had to confront him,
Right.
I was going to do it then. My Christian friends, sometimes when you see something escalate like that, we have to be able to decelerate it immediately. And if you don't decelerate things immediately, it's going to get out of hand. It's going to get out of hand. And some people will not know how to decelerate.
Right.
What I see some people do, they get upset and they feed it.
Right.
Right. You got to be careful what you feed. If this guy's angry, and then you want to be bad, that's the same thing that happened down in Cincinnati.
Right.
One guy gets angry, the other guy gets angry, and nobody's going to back down.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to diffuse, because nobody wants to feel like they're inferior, or these words, they don't want to feel like they're a punk.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say that. Just getting ready to say that.
And so therefore you got something to prove, they got something to prove. Well, the Undertaker says, I can prove you both wrong.
It's funny that you say that, Pastor, because I am up in my age now, and I ain't gonna tell my age because I don't think I look bad for my age.
No,
but
I think you look pretty good for your age.
But I remember, Pastor, growing up as a teenager, even younger than that. And the thing about it was, I grew up in the city of Philadelphia.
Oh, brotherly love.
Yeah, that's what you want to call it.
That's
what they call it.
I've been to Philly a few times.
But I grew up in a gang-infested neighborhood. I mean, we didn't have the little yellow bus that would take you to school. We didn't have tokens at the time when I was going to school. We had to walk to school. And I mean, we had to walk through gangs. We had to walk through the neighborhood where gangs was. And if you didn't have any kind of structure about yourself, if you didn't have to do anything, I grew up in a boxing family. My dad was a professional fighter. So I grew up in that. I mean, I grew up going to PAL and different things like that. I wanted to be a fighter at one time, so I knew the whole 9 yards.
Right.
But the thing about it was like, we had to walk through these neighborhoods, right? And I mean, the Zulu Nation, all these crazy days. I remember when they was trying to recruit me one time. My grandmother said, "You ain't going out there." But what I'm saying, Pastor, is this. I'm just saying, it's like we were able to, but there was no gun violence. The only thing they had at that time was zip guns, and they made them out of rubber bands. And they put a bullet on the end, and if it pierced your skin, you was lucky. But all I'm saying now is like, I know the difference. I'll give you an example. Like I said, I'm up at my age. And I know how to defuse certain situations. In other words, like, say you want to talk bad to me and all that kind of stuff. I learned that sometimes, man, it's best to walk away from a situation. Well, it was this younger guy that was younger than me. My old way came into play. My body telling me one thing, my brain telling me something different. My brain saying, "Man, you've been going to need that long." Your body talking about, "Man, don't let him poke you like that." Look, that dude hit me with. I ain't afraid to say it. I stopped talking bad.
You know what? I tell you what. That reminds me. When I was growing up, before we moved out of the neighborhood, I lived about a block in walking distance of the DeSoto Bass Courts here in Dayton.
I heard about that. I keep hearing that name.
And this is when I was about 7 or 8 years old, and I was carrying newspapers, and I'll never forget when I was robbed. And back then, the kids would walk up to you. I had to deliver them to Soda Bass. Guy said, "Give me a dime," and you like, "Man, I ain't got a dime." That shows you how bad inflation is.
Yeah.
Then they was just asking for a dime. "Hey man, you got a dime?" Like, what? The newspaper was $1.25 on Sunday, 50 cents during the week or something like that.
Yeah.
Back then, it was dirt cheap. But I remember getting robbed, and after I got robbed and came home, and they took my papers, took my money, and everything was messed up that day. And so I just decided in my mind I wasn't gonna get beat up all the time.
Right.
And
that's right.
I went to Louis Troy school, so I had to cut through the Bass. It was a shortcut.
Right.
So I would cut through the Bass and go there, and at least once a week I was challenged.
Okay.
So I learned how to fight and went there. And eventually my parents, they were ready to move, so we moved to the other end of town.
Okay.
So I went to Weaver School. There was a school in Dayton called Weaver. And so what I wanted to do was show that I could fight. Because I came out of a neighborhood.
Right.
Because I'm in now this little area in the Roosevelt High School area.
Right.
For those of you out from Dayton that know Roosevelt. And back in the 70s, 60s and 70s.
Right.
And so we moved right across the street, and I would go to Weaver. I'm going to Weaver, and I get there my first day. I'm looking for the baddest guy in school.
They always said that, though.
Right, yeah. I'm looking for the bad, because I want to beat the baddest guy. because I'm coming from a rough neighborhood. Well, his name, God rest his soul, was Johnny B. Wilkerson. And Johnny B., he just passed a few months ago. But what had happened was, and they told me about Johnny B. Now, we're 7, 8 years old. They're telling me about Johnny B. And here I am. I'm coming from a fighting neighborhood.
Right.
And I go over there, and he's begging me that he didn't want to fight.
Right.
And so I'm like, I got to get this guy.
Right.
Because if not, people won't respect me.
Right.
Cortez, I'm thinking like, I'm 8 years old looking for respect. I said, people won't respect me if I don't do this. So back then, what was the beauty of it, it was like, meet me after school.
Right.
Now they're going to fight you in school and shoot you in school.
That's right.
But back then, it was a big deal to have a fight after school.
Yeah.
So we get outside, and he's still saying he don't want to fight.
Right.
So all of a sudden the fight began. That guy beat me up and down. But what I remember most was he said to me after he had beat me up and down, he said, "Have you had enough?" and I'm sitting up there. I'm sitting there wanting to fight some more. And he hit me again. He said, "Have you had enough?" And finally I realized this is a fight I'm not going to win. And he hit me the last time, and I fell back on the ground. And he said, "Have you had enough?" I said, "Yes." And he reached down his hand to pick me up.
Yeah.
That's what it was about then.
Yeah.
Even fighting in the baths.
Yeah.
You had to fight, but you lived to fight another day.
And and that was I'm not gonna say that was the best thing about that, but I remember having fights in the neighborhood and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And after it was over, we wouldn't play basketball.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Some people that I didn't think that would wind up being, because I never had a lot of male friends.
Mm-hmm.
I had a few, but the ones that it seemed that I had a fight with end up being my best friend.
And that's what Johnny was all the way. I was heartbroken because he was at church the Sunday before,
Yeah.
and then before the week was out, he passed away. But I'm grateful for the lessons that life has given us.
Yeah.
And so many times, young people, live to fight another day.
Yeah.
Ain't nothing worth taking someone else's life.
Yeah.
Or my father would say, taking something that you didn't create.
Right. That's why our prisons are so full. That's why they kept building prisons.
Right.
We got people in jail now for things that they are doing today. Some of them are doing years and years for selling drugs and different things like that. And the majority of them are black folks. That's what, Pastor, I mean, I look at like this pandemic, like this COVID-19, this COVID virus. If you really look at the statistics and see how many people passed away, majority of them are black.
Because, sometimes we don't believe, and I'm just going to say it like we used to say it, my grandparents used to say, we don't believe fat meat's greasy.
Yeah.
We don't believe it.
Yeah.
How can you want me to be safe around you and you ain't took care of your own self? If I was to take a poll in our church and ask some people the question, how many of y'all, and be honest, and I'm gearing toward this, that I would basically put on a piece of paper, I need your name, and you just answer yes or no.
Right.
I need to know how many of y'all have had your shots. And, and some people even believe that that's personal. Well, when you look at the statistics and you look at the elderly people that have underlying conditions,
Right.
and that they're acceptable to this, even having the vaccination. We on last Tuesday we buried my wife's sister,
Right.
and shortly after that, our piano player, came down
yeah.
with COVID.
Yeah.
And they found her unresponsive in her apartment or in her house down in Hamilton. And they rushed her to the hospital. She had some internal bleeding. They don't know what happened, but she was diagnosed with COVID. And that she was 100% on the ventilator, 100% on the ventilator, and that she was not breathing on her own. But show you that God is still in the blessing business. As of yesterday, she was breathing 100% on her own, and she was out of intensive care, back into a private room. You know, it's people like that that we have to be concerned about.
That's right.
Maybe you can bounce back.
Right.
Maybe it don't bother you. And maybe you don't think it's important. And maybe you think because you might wear a mask around them. Okay, a mask is a filter.
Right.
And how much can it actually filter out?
Right.
It's not there to kill the disease.
Right.
It's there so that it is, that it doesn't spread as bad.
Right. Right.
But in my opinion, some of it could be through hand-to-hand or bodily contact.
Yeah.
To where you got the mask on, but you didn't wash your hands, or you
That's
didn't do
right.
this,
Yep.
you didn't do this, and because and then you go touch this person that's acceptable to it,
Yeah.
and they get it.
Yep.
People, we have to be mindful of this.
Yep.
Get your shot.
Yeah.
Just like I always said, you've probably heard me say it before. If you can trust your local weed man to sell you weed, you can buy alcohol.
Ain't that something?
You can buy alcohol. You can go to a restaurant that you don't know where the cook's been.
That's right. Hey, you don't know
And you
what they
can do
doing
all
in that
this all
back.
right, I mean, my father didn't like to eat out, and back in the day, because he was so afraid that somebody was going to spit on his food.
Yeah. Yep.
Back then, some of the older people, that's what they feared. They wouldn't dare eat out.
Yeah. That's right.
And that's why a lot of them grew their own food and raised their own food, because they didn't trust nobody.
Right.
Because of maybe racism, or even not so much racism, but they didn't trust maybe their neighbor.
Right.
Or something that went down. We have people that will do some things.
Oh wow.
And so
Yes.
with that, we have to be careful.
Yes.
We have to be so careful. And like I said, when, if we train up our children, if we do what we're supposed to do, and then, take every precaution that we can, this thing is not going to go away anytime soon.
It ain't gonna go away.
And we got to remember,
Right.
we've opened up the world again for world travel.
That's right.
So now we got monkeypox, and they're trying to isolate it to a certain demographic of people.
Yeah.
Well, they did the same thing with the AIDS virus.
Right.
And
Yep.
come to find out, it didn't always have to be sexually transmitted.
That's right.
That
That's
it
right.
could go to someone that is not
Well,
not
they
gay.
said the kids are getting it,
Right.
and they ain't sexually active.
Right. I mean, kids are getting it. Some of the things that goes on. You know what I'm going to say, and this is a talk show, gospel talk show. But one of the things that I realize is that when we look at the wars that goes on, a lot of these nations, they can't beat us hand to hand. We're the richest and the most powerful country in the world.
Yep.
Well, if they can't get you through their weapons, there's many other ways to get us.
That's right.
And sometimes, now this is just strictly my opinion, and I might get in trouble, but, this to me is another chemical warfare.
Well, they're already talking about it. They're already saying it.
Right, it's chemicals.
And-
It's in the air.
Yeah, and see, that's one of the main things, Pastor. We can't see what's there. One thing I loved about Michael Jackson when he was alive, Mike was the first one that wore a face mask.
Oh, yeah.
And they made fun of Michael Jackson. But see, when you rich, you learn things. And what he did was he confided in scientists, and they was telling them the stuff that's in the air.
Well,
we got so much stuff in the air, Pastor. We can't see all this stuff, and we don't know what's leaking here and what's leaking there. You got to remember the exhaust coming from the cars and all this
carbon
other kind of
monoxide in the ozone layer. You know, one of the worst things, the best and worst things that was ever created was the cell phone.
Oh, Lord.
Cell phone, the best internet. We can't live without it. We cannot live without this.
Got that right.
I mean, as I'm sitting here,
I'll be the last.
I can't. I mean, you know, I mean, I feel naked if I ain't got my cell phone. It's like now it's a part of my daily attire. It's you know having. Hey, wait a minute. Your cell phone is like putting on undergarments anymore. You gotta have it on.
But the thing about it is, yeah, I mean, I even do it myself. I misplaced my phone and I can't find it. And I go crazy.
I lose.
Everything is in there. I mean, remember when we used to use the yellow pages? Mm-hmm. Remember we used to call 411?
We ain't got to do anything anymore. We just got to pick up our phone. Hey, I got my phone.
I bet you. I mean,
you know what?
I bet you, without looking at your phone, if you can remember half of the people that you know phone number.
I can't.
You know what phone number that I remember? I never forgotten. I remember when we got the phone. We got the phone back in 1972. When my mother, stepfather moved to our new home, and she got a phone. That phone number that she got, has been the same number from the day she got her phone. Wait a minute, I can't remember nobody else's phone number, but I know that phone number by heart.
Well, you know,
that's the only one I know.
I remember. You know what used to be impressive is that if we could remember a girl's number, we'd walk up to a girl, hey baby, what's your number? And she'd tell us her number, and I got it, and we memorize it. And then we turn around and meet another girl, hey baby, what's your number? I got it, and you memorize it. You know, now we like, look, tell me your number, and then I'll text you my information. I don't know none of my kids' number, and they done had the same number for years. You know, none of my grandkids' numbers, they done had the same phone. You know, excuse me, Cortez, I don't even have a clue what his number is. You know, I mean.
Hey, you know one thing I don't, I'm not going to say the word hate, but I dislike texting.
Oh.
I don't, look, I'll tell everybody, all my cast members, everybody, I'll say text Ms. Woman, who's the manager, but call me. Don't text me, because half of the time I really don't see it, because I really don't pay no attention. But I just don't like them, because one time I was calling myself texting, right? Mm-hmm. I'm texting. Send it out. See, I'm not one of those check it before you send it. So I sent the thing out, and somebody sent me a text message back saying, well, you ain't had to act like that. And I was like, well, let me call. What are you talking about? They said, did you read your message? I said, no. They said, look at your message. I looked at that message. I said, I will never text again. I don't know what. Look, Pastor, I tried to do the talking thing.
Oh, talk to text.
Yeah, I tried to talk to text, because I didn't like that text and stuff.
Well,
but
you know,
I want to go to one more subject, Coach. I know you have to close your show with your monologue, but I mentioned about this other shooting in Butler Township.
Okay, yeah.
Where this gentleman, he killed the wife and the husband. Then he killed the mother and the daughter.
Oh my God.
Now, they just start releasing stuff that he has said. Mm-hmm. You know what? You know why he killed those people?
Why?
It was voices in his head telling him that they put a chip in him. So that just goes to show you a lot of. See, when they close a lot of our state hospitals and stuff like that, and they put them folks out in the street with nowhere to go, and all the problems that they have, and that's why when a police officer approaches a disoriented person, they don't know how to react to them.
Right.
That's why, like you said, they need more training, because it's so many mental illnesses out here with people. You know, you got to be aware of who it is. You know. When we was young, we used to see Mr. John walking down the street talking to himself. We ain't paying no attention. We laughed at it. But see, today you can't, because you don't know what that fool might do.
Right. And
well, excuse me, I didn't mean to say.
Oh no. You're absolutely right. You know, one of the things that we have to look at is the fact of you know, when the mental health centers close down and they can evaluate you and figure out what kind of medicine to put you on, and then say as long as they stay on the medicine, they're going to be fine. Well, the question begins to say that how can they expect you with a mental illness take your medicine like you're supposed to? You know, the likelihood you might do it for a little while.
Right.
Okay, and then if something happens and you don't take it for a few days. It was a sad case. Some years ago, there was a young man I know, God rest his soul, he was suffering with mental illness. And what happened was he didn't take his medicine. And he got scared. He didn't take his medicine for a few days.
Right.
And got scared and decided to take it all
at once.
All at once.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, he passed away.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, we have to come up with ways to address mental illness. We got to come up with a way to address gun violence in a way that's not the answer to situations. We have to figure out a way to address all the issues that we're dealing with right now, the homeless issues, the issues of mental, of things what people are going through. We're trying to fix so much, but when they cut the budget, they cut it. Sometimes in mental illnesses, they cut it in things that affect poor people more so. You know, the problem with the opioid problem wasn't a problem till it hit certain areas. Then when it hit a certain area, now you're gonna get funding. You know, we have to be careful how we do things and the way we do things. I know it's about time to wrap up.
Yeah, it's almost that time. All I want to say is this much, and I was really kind of going around it because I wanted to been saying that lesson that you gave at church last Sunday. I'm gonna tell you, I was watching it again when I put your program on, and you need to go finish it up because I think it was part one, and then you're gonna do part two. It really was good. I mean, I really enjoyed listening to how you was teaching that lesson, and that's what we need to learn a lot in church. A lot of times it ain't about a sermon.
Right.
You know, it's about teaching. You know, because I think the teaching aspects, because a lot of people don't understand the teaching aspects, because they'll hear a sermon, they'll say, well, what was the church? Well, he preached a powerful word. Well, what did he preach on? I don't know, but I knew it was powerful. But look, I will leave it like that because I know you need to close out your show with your mind, man. But look, Pastor, I thank you so much for bringing me on. I'm sorry that Mr. John T. is going through what he's going through. Not just him. A lot of folks are going through what they're going through. And let's continue to pray for him and know that God is in control and he will make a way. Pastor, thank you so much, sir. You can end your show with your monologue.
All right, thank you so much. Hey, thank you so much, Cortez Jackson, for being our special guest today. One of the things that we're going to look at today as I close our message, our talk show, is that God is still in the blessing business. And one of the things I want to look at is Galatians 6, 9, 10. And let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap, if we faint not. You know, in due season, you know, what I want folks to do is learn how to do good. Lean not on your own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and God will direct your path. You know, we want to thank God for you today, and don't get tired of doing what's right. God bless you.